So the sanctuary is, to me, kind of a magical place. It honors and cherishes life. Um, so not just in the way that we care for the resident animals, like the dogs and the horses and the pigs, but there's an abundance of wildlife. And to spend time at the sanctuary in the early morning or in the evenings is to get to see sort of all of that life just flourishing. We have to change the way we think about these animals and the way we care for them. We have to see them for who they are, and that will change everything.
We were just normal people with jobs, and we worked a lot and we played a lot and had a really nice life with our animals, which was just maybe we had one dog and we were dog sitting. And I get a call at work and it's Jill, and she says, "There's this dog named Shadow and I think we need to save him."
I was sitting in a Starbucks actually with a housemate, just on a Sunday, being a normal person, having a cup of coffee. And my housemate was browsing the pet ads on Craigslist. And there was an ad for a 15-year-old dog who needed a home. And he'd been left at a local shelter, tied up outside at night with a note on his collar that said, "He's too old, we don't want him anymore." You know, that really struck me, that this senior dog was going to spend his last chapter in a shelter feeling unwanted. So I called Cody at work and said, "Hey, can we adopt this dog?" And he, of course, said, "Yeah, bring him home." So we contacted the shelter and some volunteers drove him up to us. And that was the beginning of our journey with Shadow.
Maybe it might have been the very next day someone brought Shadow up to us, and he was this very old black lab, and there was this sweetness about him, and that, instantly he was like, okay, this is my new family. And we took him everywhere. He did everything with us. Adventures, he was always up for it. So we want to go to a river, he's out there walking in the river. And this is a 15-year-old dog, there was just this exuberance and love for life that made such an impact on us. So when he started slowing down, we could tell this is going to be a hard one.
We're gonna go see where the dogs live and how they live and why they live that way. We'll start there, and then we'll go explore the rest of it. So this is the house that the dogs live in, and there's several little detached cottages. We call those the country estates for the dogs who can't live this close to other dogs or people. It would be too much pressure for them. So these are more like the condos. So come on in. This is kind of what we call our living room, our doggy living room. And this was one of the first spaces we created. We wanted to give a place where the dogs could hang out with their human friends in an atmosphere that felt like home. What we quickly realized is that the dogs liked this best, more than going out for walks, more than playing in the yards, more than hiking or whatever. This is what they wanted, was that connection to a person, because it's typically what dogs don't get in a shelter environment, is that slowed down connection. Helping dogs who are struggling find their calm is so much more important than draining their energy. this room ended up being the model for all of our other rooms. Now every dog's room is like this. And instead of it being somewhere where they're just put away, a volunteer can go in and sit with them where they live. So now it feels like home. This is our kitchen. Come on in. This is where we do all things food, just like a kitchen in a house. One of the things we do for our dogs is home cook for them. So even though they do get a high quality kibble, we cook our own topper so that we can get all the nutrients we want. We get local, organic, grass-fed organ meat from one of the local ranches. We get fresh organic greens, fruits, adaptogens like mushrooms, and we put that all in a slow cooker and cook it together and blend it up and basically make our own soft food so that we can add to the dog's diets all the nutrients we want them to get. But it also smells like food in here during the day when we're cooking. So it smells like home. Dogs can smell that and they know, hey, they're cooking my dinner. We want every aspect of their environment and their daily experience to feel like home. So that yellow house is Tiambe's tea room. And that's the Blue Bulldog pub.
The blue what?
The Blue Bulldog pub. So these are the dogs who have to live a little bit more spread out. And we have another little cottage over there for that brother-sister pair.
Okay.
This, where we stop, this is what we call the Hill of Kings. And this is where many of our friends are buried as well. It started with our dog Otis, who we had when we started Shadows Fund. And he was so generous in the way he just welcomed dogs into his home and shared everything and shared us and never complained and gave so generously. And we kind of referred to him as a king among dogs. And when he passed, we buried him here. And then several of his friends joined him, so we called it the Hill of Kings. There's little lanterns. We have a tradition when a dog is buried here, we light their lantern that night. And we put one in our window, so it's just As Shadow aged, he started to lose his mobility, and we ordered him a wheelchair to help him get around. And by the time it arrived, he didn't get to use it. He passed the day after it arrived. And so we thought, well, what are we going to do with this wheelchair? Why don't we sell it, and we'll use the money to help another senior dog who needs help. And we called that money, which was $250, Shadow's Fund. And that was all it was ever going to be, was money to help another senior dog. And we did. We passed that money on to a disabled veteran who needed help funding his senior dog's medications. And then requests started coming in from folks saying, well, could you help this senior dog, or could you help that person? And that's when we realized that we could do something ongoing, that we could make this a thing. And that that was at a time that we were still really struggling with Shadow's loss. And it felt like a way to keep him with us, to keep him alive, and to not lose the best part of him. Because he did suffer a great loss, and he was treated poorly, but he didn't let that change him, and he showed us that strength and that hope. And if we could keep that part of him alive and use it to help other dogs like him, then Shadow kind of lives forever, doesn't he?
The moment we had to respond to a dog in need, that was that shifting point where all of a sudden our lives were doing different things. We rescued a lab, and then we rescued another senior dog, and then we found her name was Buttons, and she was a senior dog at the Baldwin Park Shelter. And Jill said, well, I'm just going to go pick that dog up. I think we can find her in a home locally. not a problem. It didn't feel like any sort of big deal to us. And when she got there is when the volunteers told her, look, there's 13 dogs here and they're all going to lose their lives tomorrow. Can you do anything? And she called me again and she said, we need to help these dogs. And I said, of course, let's just do it. Like, let's post on social media and let's see if we can find adopters. I had coworkers lined up and we just jumped in. And it ended up just working out. And, you know, our naivety was profound, but it also allowed us to do things that once we found out later that the rescue world just didn't do. You know, you don't pull up to a shelter and throw a dozen dogs in a car and hope for the best. That's insane. But we just did it. And when we encountered a problem, we just said, okay, how do we solve this? And that really has been our mantra from the beginning. So Jill shows up with a load of dogs and we put them in bedrooms and laundry rooms and bathrooms and start marketing. And even then it didn't feel like a thing. It was just like, let's help these dogs. And it just kept evolving because once you get connected to that world, you see there's so many lives in crisis and urgent need, and just helping a little bit makes a big difference.
Getting a lot of dogs at the sanctuary who were challenging behaviorally was the beginning of a journey for us. And initially, our gut reaction, like most people's, was to go to trainers, get online and do research and think that there was this sort of magic way to change who these dogs were and solve these behavioral challenges. And what we discovered after spending a lot of time and a lot of money and finding the dogs were still the same dogs. They might go into training and then they go into a home and still the same dog. Behavior was still there. And so we thought, what is it that these dogs need? Are they unfixable? Can they not be reached? And that was something we just couldn't accept. We weren't willing to accept that these dogs were unreachable or broken in some way that was irreparable. And for us, the change came when we stopped trying to fix them and stopped having this idea of who that dog needed to be and how quickly we needed him to be that way. And we just dropped the agenda and we dropped the timeline. And we took a step back and let the dog show us who they were and what made them feel afraid and what made them react and how they needed to live. We let them show us. As these dogs started to show us what made them feel afraid or what made them feel pressured or anxious, we were able to adjust ourselves, adjust their environment. We were able to make the changes that those dogs were asking for to live a life that felt comfortable, where they could breathe, where they didn't feel like they were in fear all the time. And when we did that, it was like the sun came out. These dogs stopped reacting to everything. They softened. They started to trust us. And it was as if they were finally being heard. And that was everything for us. That was what really showed us that there is this missing element out there. Whether you have pets in your home or whether you're a volunteer or whether you work in the industry, there's a fundamental understanding that we are lacking of dogs because we're just so busy and we're so agenda driven and we're trying to get from here to there and we're just moving quickly. And in all of that, we're missing who the dogs are and we're missing what they're trying to tell us. And so we sort of shifted everything. We dropped our focus on just get them adopted quickly, send them to a trainer and get them adopted. We stopped doing that and started spending more time doing nothing. And by doing nothing, I mean letting a dog arrive, letting them show us who they are, figuring out how to help them be their happiest, healthiest self. And then from that knowledge, helping to uh, create the life that dog needs, whether it's here at the sanctuary or it's in a home. That dog might need a home that is a particular environment, or they might need a quiet home, or they might need a home who engages them all the time. Their needs are so different, just like ours. And letting a dog show us who they are and what they need is everything. It's what helped us understand these dogs and take the dogs that nobody else would help or nobody thought could be helped, and help them become the soft, joyful, loving dog that they are. And that's something we can teach people, that we can show people who their dogs are, and we can show people in the industry why dogs are reacting the way they're reacting, and how we can shift and how we can reduce fear and pressure to help dogs be dogs, living joyfully.
We always talk about really wanting to give back. While the sanctuary is amazing and unique and operates in a really unconventional way, it's given us all of these lessons that other people can copy. We really want our sanctuary to be able to show them that there's a different way, to allow people to kind of rethink animal sheltering.